All right, welcome to the Eskrima podcast. I'm recording this a little bit earlier than normal, mostly because I'm gonna try to get some rest over the weekend this time instead of filming on Sunday. And also trying to curate this mustache in dedication to my father. This is the Eskrima podcast. We're coming up pretty close to the memorial seminar that we hold every year in the anniversary of the passing of my father, who is my teacher and a lot of people's teachers in Filipino martial arts. And in this podcast, if you haven't joined since I've changed the format, I shave because Eskrima and knives, but also because it slows me down and it makes me think and it allows me to really go over my thoughts. But first, the vibe. I saw that and I was like, yes, this has to be the way to do it. This is the thing that must happen. Last week I talked about, actually earlier this week or later last week, I know it's so confusing now with the change because I adjusted for Patrick's wedding and everything, but talked about curating your circle. I talked about curating the people around you based upon values, which is important. The difficult part of that, I'll say before I move on to what I'm trying to get to today, is living a principled life sometimes means that you are going to have a different social network, to say the least. And that's difficult because there's lots of people that used to be my friends that I don't entertain anymore because they just don't share my values. They have no mission, or their mission is wildly different than my own mission. And so I curate, because you are the average of the 5 people that you hang around with. Don't let people F up your average. Don't let them bring you down. The whole objective is to raise the bar, at least as a martial artist. But anyways, I actually want to talk about not the curation of your friends, but who's the right teacher. I did a blog post on that. I did a video on that before with regards to original. I don't even remember which episode I did that on. That's when I was doing these podcasts in the car. But who belongs in your circle? What's your mission? But really what I'm looking at now is curating what you consume. But I'll get that later because that's an important part of that. I actually talked about it today. It's Wednesday night. I did it in the Dumog class. And we talked a little bit about how we curate what we consume, because that's important because it shapes the way that we think and feel. It is Wednesday, the 10th, the day before September 11th. And today there was a terrible assassination. And while I don't get into politics and my martial arts stuff, because I don't think that's the thing to do, I am dedicating this episode to the First Amendment, to George Boole, and the formal as well as the informal fallacies of logic, and of course, Charlie Kirk. Prayers for the family, especially his children. Monday Dumog is the first thing that I did for training this week, obviously, because Monday is the first class. And, as far as those of you going, but why are we talking about Dumog, which is grappling, when we're really talking about Eskrima? First of all, Eskrima means to fight. For those of you who are thinking that you're a stick fighting purist or whatever, fighting includes wrestling. Although I will say that an acquaintance of mine who was a former paratrooper, Special Forces paratrooper for the Air Force, he said about fighting in the sandbox or in the Middle East, the last thing I want to do when I'm in the sand is fight against someone who's got a knife and I've got a tomahawk and I've got a carbine and he's got an AK and I've got a pistol and he's got a pistol, is to get in a snuggle fight. However, we do teach that. We do train in that every week. Monday's class, we really worked on the first strike loop, which is basic striking that you might encounter in a self-defense situation, the types of strikes of the untrained but the violent. or at least those who are going to commit violence in a physical way, sans gun, right? Sans any other kind of modern tool, although that is within the scope of the Spider Dumog system, which is a program that I developed almost 10 years ago now, and I've been teaching for almost 10 years. Yeah, 10 years. 2015, 2014. That's when I started teaching that program. It was a year or two after my Uncle Danny had said, you know, the greatest thing that would be was to take Filipino martial arts and grappling and mix it together, maybe throw a little bit of Silat in there. Lo and behold, I said, challenge accepted. So we covered the first strike loop, which is angles of attack, angles 1 through 5 or angles 1 through 7. And then we worked on that baseball bat choke as an initial thing to deal with people grabbing our clothing. Now, I like that particular choke as a start because it is almost invariably, for anybody that knows any kind of grappling, defeated by counter grabbing where I grab, which gives me the opportunity to work against your counter grab. So let me choke you and you pass out, or worse. I like chokes specifically in grappling because outside of striking and the use of tools, which I prefer, right? It's the only set of lethal techniques in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and grappling, at least immediately. Of course, I could like break your arm and then do something lethal, or break your leg or tear your knee out and then do something lethal. But those are really just maimings in and of themselves. And from there, of course, you could do anything, but that's true of like breaking your arm or breaking your neck and then doing something. So whatever. We worked on the baseball bat choke and a takedown combo. And we worked on this from hand fighting or pummeling using foundation drill 1, but also using pummeling different drills because my Uncle Danny said that once that the hubad, as they like to call it in the Kali crowd, is really just a kind of pummeling, which is an interesting perspective. So we worked on that and it was quite fun. Everyone had some fun. We even did Seek the Path, which for those of you in the Eskrima tribe, exclusively as opposed to doing any of the other FMA systems, especially anything from my Uncle Dan, is a kind of variation of our foundation drill 2, to put it simply. Right, so very old school Filipino martial arts, very common vanilla martial arts, Filipino martial arts, but useful in teaching pummeling. We did discuss the difference between fighting and grappling, because my opinion is that grappling isn't fighting for the most part compared to real fighting where people might die. Again, grappling, especially from the point of view of most people who do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, is a competition. You can be dangerous with it and it's effective, and it sucks when you lose. And I'm not saying like I'm the best authority on that. I mean, I just do grapple. I'm not saying I'm an expert in it, but I have grappled in my bounty hunting days, and I've also used it as a bouncer, right? Both on purpose in terms of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu being used or grappling being used in the bounty hunting days when subdual was more important than hurting people, and then also on purpose when it came to being a bouncer, because I was trying to control someone until the police got there. I'll get into that story maybe in my book that I'm working on, I don't know. But we did talk about that and the problem with grappling, which is it leads to more grappling, which makes it hard to fight more than one person. And then we talked about how hand fighting can negate completely grappling. Going back to the dedication today, and also the kind of the world we live in today, which are some of the things I think about when I'm shaving. This just brings to light why I really wanted to get out of law enforcement and bounty hunting. During that time, the last part in 2018 and then into 2019, I saw a trend where a great deal of the community in the world today, at least here in the United States, especially here in California, didn't appreciate the people that would be out there to protect them, to take the rapists and the murderers and the child molesters and the drug dealers out the street. They didn't want them. They wanted to do something else. Cashless bail was starting to become a thing back then. lot of rhetoric around bail, which is an 8th Amendment right, incidentally, was coming out. And I just thought to myself, why be involved in the idea of trying to serve a community out of civic duty or any sense of duty to your fellow man when they don't want it? I certainly don't need help protecting myself. So I wanted to get out. And so I see today more of the same sentiment in the things that are happening today, that poor Ukrainian woman, and trying to argue for, the rights of the criminal versus the victims. And I gotta say, those of you who are still wearing the badge, those of you still in security work, those of you still in the military work, serving a public that doesn't, in my opinion, really value you, you're better than I am. You are better than I am. I did my 4 or 5 years, and I'm out. Maybe that was wrong. I don't know. What do you think? My daughter thought at the time that my opinion was maybe okay, but that if I were to be in that position, then it was incumbent upon me, my duty, to do those things. So I have a hard time with that. But anyways, so brings us to the next video, which is here. And this is hilarious.
What are you nuts, leaving a machete by the front door? What are you tripping about? It's for self-defense. You realize if somebody tries to break into your house, they're gonna pick up the machete right here at the door. Exactly. So when I hit him with a bunch of persuasion cased in Full Metal Jacket, I could tell the cop it was self-defense.
Wait.
I like the way you think.
Hold on there. Did he say persuasion encased self-defense? Full Metal Jacket. Persuasion encased Full Metal Jacket. Oh my God. I heard that, and my best friend, I think, is the one who sent that to me. My best friend Todd, not my best friend Sandra. The things that she sends me, most of the time I can't talk about, which is saying a lot considering what Todd sends me, and I can't talk about a lot of that stuff either. Our humor is just a little too dark, but that's hilarious. I keep the machete by the doors that way that when I use my persuasion Full Metal Jacket, oh, that's just beautiful. I love that. Anyways, little break there, which gets us back to curating what you consume. A lot of times I don't look at the videos my friends send me because I'm trying to curate what I consume, but that was hilarious. My nephew, he's a teenager. He's glued to his phone, like many of us are. And it's hard not to scroll. I get it. I totally get it. I pretty much only do it when I'm going to the bathroom or in the mornings when I'm reviewing emails and notifications and iterating for doing a little bit of research for content, because I'm constantly researching for the content for the social media platforms and trying to refine my ability to teach via video, because it's not something that I've done for a long time. I've only been doing that for 2 or 3 years. So anyways, it's hard to not eat those tasty things, right? It's hard for us what we consume, but the thing is you need to have self-control, and you can ride the flow. If you must consume, curate your consumption. You could quit, of course. You could sign out forever from social media, and that also will distance you from a lot of people, which is not a bad thing, right? But you can curate too. And so over today especially, but over the years, I've slowly been very intentional about what I follow or who I follow, the counts that I even give a like or fully watch the videos, because I'm conscientious of how the content will be fed to me. So curate what you consume. It's pretty important. Be intentional with that. And your phone and your computer can once again be your tool. Somebody said to me once that the phone is there for my convenience, not the convenience of others to pester me with their ways, thinkings, or what they think is funny or interesting, which most of the time I don't find a lot of stuff interesting, especially if it has to do with sports. Definitely not really interested in that. That's what did my friend call it in construction? Dolce para la cabeza, which is, he was saying, Can't be watching that TV and that sports. It's candy for the brain. I went, well, that's pretty interesting. And he said it that way, considering I would have thought all of us working in construction at this time that he would have been all about the sports, because most of those guys were about their teams, beer, some of them cocaine, right? And building things, which is typically what you find on the construction arena. At least I did. Probably the only person that I think that didn't do drugs or drink too much when I was there was a guy by the name of Kevin Quickendell, who was my dad's student and helped me get my job in construction when I was a young man. That was before I sprained one of my hips. I think it was my right hip first, because my left hip I sprained. Yeah, my left hip I sprained as a bounty hunter. My right hip I sprained in construction. So don't sprain your hip. That hurts a lot. If someone brings a little board that says, hey, do you want to sign up for this? That is not the ride you want to sign up for. It's no fun, and it never goes away. Tuesday's Eskrima, I'm going to read this verbatim because it's quite big. We covered first Jogo Todo, which we also covered in the instructor meeting on the Saturday, which was the day of Patrick's wedding. Obviously before the wedding, but we covered it with combos 1 through 3 of 12, worked them on the bag. Then we did them with the kick pad and stick after defending. Before that, we set the simple defense work, which is catch everything and parry everything. Then we put it all together to defend against random attacks, any defense to one of the combos. JT combos 1 through 3 is a whole nice trick combo when we put it all together. Then we split up. The seniors went one way and the juniors went another way. The juniors, I worked with them. We worked on Candido Mono Foundation 1 with a knife, and we worked on against that for angles 1, 3, and 5. Then we went into Candido Mono Foundation drill number 2 with redirect to the 3 line. So this was based upon a question, I think it was what Yilda asked me, and then I ended up filming that and adding that to the member platform because it was missing. And then we put it together with a punching combination 4, which is a jab hook, but we expressed it as a knife trap or hand trap hook stab. So we trapped and then we hook stab with the knife. And that was pretty fun. And then a basic cover against an angle 2, right? So we're doing all this to develop basic knife skill and defense above and beyond just basic drills. Because like doing it by rote is not the point. It's just the start. And this jerk from France one time, he was basically saying, I can learn Serrada in like 3 months or something like that. And he's the guy that basically betrayed my father, but that's another story. And he thought that just by learning the drills is when you learn the art. That's like if I read the Cliff Notes, I know the play. That might work for you to pass your high school exams in literature, but that doesn't make you someone who is an authority on literature. You still got to do the freaking work. So anyways, beyond that, the seniors, what they did was they did basic Serrada lock and block, and then we did kick pad lock and block with them. We finished the class with some history. We talked about the Vilabraille. We talked about Abrescy. We talked about the Faith in FMA. We talked about Serrada Cross, which was taught to me by my Uncle Jimmy, who also taught to me about faith in Filipino martial arts. And we also did a little bit of lecture on You Come From Legends. So those of you who are actually in the tribe and you've been training and doing that stuff, your lineage leads back to people that fought in World War II, the people that did death matches and challenge matches, literally like MMA with a stick, but also just straight up like, let's fight until someone dies or gets knocked out. Real combat tested art. That's what the United System of Eskrima is based on. And so we talked about Grandmaster Leo Giron, Cabales, Vilabraille. We talked about the Arca, Master Arca, who taught my uncle, Danny, as well as his form of Largamano. And we talked about Sifu Abressy's uncle, who taught him, who also fought in World War II, right? Which brings me to an idea, or brings me to my next thought, which is everyone falls and everyone must learn to get back up. It is guaranteed you will fall one more time than you get up. And the nature of that fall will define who you are as a human being. So basically the idea is that, you got to get up. And the last time you fall is, which is one more than you get up, is when you pass. And the nature of that and the story between the first time you fall and the last time you fall is what defines you as a human being. And that's going to be influenced by what you consume, the people that you're around, and your mission and what your endeavor is. Whether that's martial arts or something else, whether it's family, if it's something else, whether you're serving yourself or serving others, you will be defined by that. And the warrior spirit's expressed through that. So just think about that. I just finished the Wednesday class for Dumog last night. And so we basically, or tonight, we worked on shrimping and shrimp defenses. And we did, a hop pass versus an inverted open guard recovery thing just for warm-ups. What I wanted to get to is we went to do strike loop 2, which is the basic punches from punching combinations 1 through 3 in the 9 system of Eskrima. And we did a defense against a strike loop, and then do the baseball bat choke and takedown. We did attack with the strike loop to the takedown, and then we worked on some basic rolling. So it was pretty fundamental, still applying the concepts of the United System of Eskrima, or what I call the cipher, the academic material, in application to what we do in grappling to build reflexes. So I haven't even gotten to the reflex building side, where you're just basically doing flow and random sparring or rolling. I can't wait to get these guys' vocabulary up so that I can use the reflex training models that we have adapted from the United System of Eskrima over to Dumog. So I'm pretty excited about that. So I'm going to have these 2 links if you're watching YouTube about it, and I might flash a couple of videos of it, but it's talking about real fighters and real fights and gangsters versus a boxer and stuff like that, and a real fighter, and it's trolls fighting real fighters. And I wanted it because it reminded me, and I was scrolling through looking for content ideas and things like that, and looking at how people, structure their videos and whatnot. My father valued real life experience over, your rank or your title. My name is Sensei so-and-so, and I've been doing martial arts. It wasn't enough. And so he believed that had to be brought in. So he brought people into influences that were real fighters, people that were UN peacekeepers, people that were, former Marine combat military vets in the Vietnam War or some other kind of conflict. One of my teachers was a Green Beret. Don't really know what he did or where he did, but I know that whenever a camera came out, he was gone. And I knew that he could speak fluently some other language. I won't get into that, but my Uncle Rob was a badass. I was afraid of him, and he taught me a lot about how to deal with fear, because I feared him, yet I still went to class. I still learned because I wasn't going to let fear rule me. And that was, I guess, my choice. So, but he valued that. And so that's part of the reason why I did the bouncing. One, it made things easier to do work, because I could still do the bouncing at night, still teach and do that stuff. But it's also why I did the bounty hunting, and why I wanted to go into law enforcement. But I wanted the freedom to teach classes in the evening in a regular schedule, which you can't get as a sworn officer, right? I wanted to keep that commitment to my students, right? Because part of being an instructor and being a dedicated instructor and a good instructor, and one that people rely on, is that you dedicated yourself to your lessons and teaching, and the students that decided that they want to train with you, regardless of the length of their commitment, because that's what a guru does. There was no activity that was more important than teaching for me, and never has been. There's really nothing more important than my dedication to the art, which is my own decision and my own sacrifice, and I get all the success and good things from that, and all the failures that came with that too, that caused the cost of relationships and stuff that come from dedicating yourself that way. But he really valued that. He valued, and he brought them in classes, just not in the ring though, but also in the battlefield or on the street. It's part of the reason why I did all the things that I've done. And if I could make enough money to, provide a place for my partner to live, she and I lived in a luxury apartment. That's what she wanted. I did the bounty hunting. I made it so that I could do that, and I could still come back. Because 10-hour shifts, 4 days a week. Sometimes I did more than sometimes I did 16-hour shifts, but that was rare and far between. It just depended on the investigation and how long it took to process someone at the jail. And so you know, the other part of it is I like the community service or the giving back to society. I appreciate that. I think that most people like to take services. They have an expectation of, you know, a value extracted from society in all different kinds of ways without any sacrifice for themselves, right? And I find that very self-serving, but that's me and that's my point of view. Everybody gets to do their own thing because, you know, Second Amendment, First Amendment, all of those things are about you being able to have freedom to do the things and think and feel the way that you do and the ability to protect it. So that's why we live in such a beautiful country, and that's why I'm appreciative of the opportunities I have, even though some Philippines-born Filipinos call me a rough Pinoy. I want to bring you to this idea that, you know, I've been talking about and bringing things back to the classes. It's this incremental investment day by day, much like you would do with a financial investment, that gives you the edge, that the experience and the mastery. Real life experience for me was a 10x kind of thing. Doing the things that I did in security work, doing the things I did in law enforcement work, expanded my understanding of what I had learned and tested it in a way that a lock and block or a referee and a timekeeper couldn't. And I have a great and deep appreciation for that, and I have a deep appreciation for those men and women who step in the harm's way for the betterment of others and to, you know, take care of their own responsibilities. It's not an easy thing. It's not necessarily always altruistic, but I respect it. And that will be that for that. I wanted to talk two last things, and I'm already done with my shave here because I'm keeping my, ooh, no, I found a spot. The first one is to talk a little bit about what it was like to train when I was 6, 7, and 8. The backyard where I grew up, where I, instead of playing with my swing set or ever having catch sessions with my dad, I played with a decorted stick. Right? For those of you who know, you know, and if you don't, you're going to, if you get the book, I'll be writing about that and describing those experiences. Not in great detail, but you'll get a feel for it. But anyways, training then was a little bit about Sinawali, a little bit about a Decortis, a lot about Cadena, a lot more about Serrada, and a lot more about Largamano. And it was mostly about reflex. In fact, back in those days, my uncle Frank DeFanti would say, going to those classes was a lot like you either knew or you didn't know. You'd go in there and you could see who did and you could see who didn't. There was no way of discerning who the instructor was or the students. There was just a bunch of guys training with sticks in the backyard, right? And I remember growing up in that, and I remember it changing from that to we had shirts and we had medallions and stuff. And the instructor shirts at that time were gray, and the student shirts were brown. You'll notice that the Kadwa gurus now, they have brown ink on their shirts. Before that was the Bay Area School of Eskrima, I was a baby. I was 2, 3 years old, maybe 4 years old during that time. And during that time, the instructors wore gold shirts with red ink, and the students wore blue shirts. So you'll notice that our advanced students wear black shirts with blue ink, and our gurus wear black shirts with gold ink. That's where that comes from. That's that history, and that's why we have this year, the memorial, we have a limited release shirt that uses the color pattern, not the logos and stuff, but the color pattern of the red ink and of the yellow shirt. To commemorate that time in period, and to just let people know that, you know, people talk, oh, I have deep roots. That's nice, so do we. And I'm just trying to acknowledge those deep roots and where we come from. Back when what people call the big three in FMA are not the people that they talk about today. That's a whole different regime or rather generation. The men that were lauded and respected were all there, but the top three were a different name set. And the last thing I want to leave you with before we end the podcast today, and I want to thank you guys all for making it this far, if you did, was something that my student, Dr. Wary, brought to my attention, which is the 7 Stages of Man by Shakespeare in his play As You Like It. And it starts with infancy, the helpless infant who's mewling and puking in his nurse's arms, right? And the schoolboy with his satchel and whining morning face, creeping like a snail to school. To the lover sighing like a furnace with a woeful ballad made to his mistress's eyebrow, which I'm not quite sure what that means. But then the soldier, full of strange oaths and bearded like the pard, jealous of honor, seeking the bubble of reputation even in the cannon's mouth, right? Followed by justice. The justice is fair, round-bellied with a good cap on, lined with eyes severe and beard of formal cut, full of the saws and modern instances. And the pantaloon old age is basically pants, right? The pantaloon state, the lean and slippered pantaloon with spectacles on his nose. Ooh, I'm wearing glasses. And pouch on his side, his youthful hose well saved, meaning that he's not wearing those, right? And then, of course, the second childhood, the last scene of all, that ends the strange and eventful history, which is second childishness and the oblivion, sans teeth, sans eyes, sans taste, sans everything. We're all human beings. We put our pants on one leg at a time. We all have to go to the bathroom, and we go through this aging process. Remember to be kind to each other. And let me get my formal goodbye. Stay sharp. Be dangerous.